This game got a little bit more interesting with the probability that Kyler Murray may actually miss this one. He's dealing with an ankle sprain right now. I know on the current injury report, he's still just marked as questionable. So he hasn't been officially ruled out. But when I think about a mobile guy who likes to move around and do the stuff that Kyler Murray does, and I think about sending him out there with an ankle sprain, I think if you're the Cardinals, you may have to ask yourself and do some personal inventory here. Is it worth it to put him in this compromised position?
See, this is funny because this is where I'm evaluating in my head is where I'm like, gosh, he's such a, what you think about the mobile quarterback and having to put strain on the ankle and he's your franchise cornerstone and you want to protect that because he's about to get $250 million this offseason. And then you think about Colt McCoy. And you're like, crap.
Yeah, they don't have that really suitable backup behind him that you could go in. Colt McCoy did win a game for them last year, though. I guess we should, or no, it didn't win a game for them, but won a game last year in the NFL.
Not only that, Colt McCoy and Alfred Morris went into Seattle and defeated the Seattle Seahawks. I don't want anyone to forget this. That is a real thing that happened last year, and we should celebrate it every time we mention Colt McCoy or Alfred Morris.
I think if you're in the Cardinals, you have to think about this from last year's standpoint, because remember, they were rolling up until the Hail Murray there, where everything started to fall off the wagon there for the Cardinals. And part of that was Kyler Murray had to deal with a shoulder injury. Now dealing with this ankle injury, and that's a big part of his game plan. You're sitting there at 7-1. Do you decide, okay, I think we could potentially give him a rest? We're in this position where I guess we are fighting for home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Do we want to even risk losing ground to the Green Bay Packers and having to go on the road and play in Lambeau this postseason? I think you have to just take a similar approach to what the Cowboys did and just hope that the talent on your roster is good enough to get you by at least 1 week against a 49ers team that, yes, they beat the hell out of the Bears. Well, actually, they didn't even beat the hell out of the Bears. It took them until the second half to really get things rolling against the Bears. Can we beat the Niners without Kyler Murray out there? I think it's possible. I'm not going to discount it, because when I look at the things going on for the Niners, their secondary has been suspect throughout the year. They weren't able to get any kind of pass rush against the Bears. So you can move the ball on them offensively if you just play safe, conservative football, don't turn the ball over, which I think is something Colt McCoy is entirely capable of. And then their defense, this is going to be interesting seeing what their defense looks like without J.J. Watt in the lineup. Because, yes, he wasn't making an impact in terms of his pass rush, gain sacks, like old school prime J.J. Watt, but he was doing some good things for them from a leadership standpoint, from a run-stopping standpoint, jump ball. He had a big tip pass the last time that the Niners and Cardinals played against each other. He had a couple, I think, tip passes there. Now, without him in the lineup, that's one more key piece off this defense that has made a huge turnaround. Is that enough for a Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan-led offense to be able to pick them apart? Because they seem to get a little bit of their mojo back, but the Jimmy Garoppolo experience has been one that's been filled with ups and downs. Hell, I almost feel like it's a home field disadvantage, because at this point, the Niners have lost. The Niners record in Levi, I believe, is 1-10 in their last 11 games in Levi.
That's kind of incredible. Damn.
They have struggled. At this point, I'm actually thinking about this, and we've joked about this too. I think that the Niners almost have lost these early season games on purpose because they don't want to play at home for the playoffs. They're conceding home field advantage. They want road field advantage. That's really what they want at this point, because they have not done anything at Levi's. And it's not the stadium. It's not the fans that are doing anything. I don't know what it is.
Just bad luck.
I guess you run into the wrong team at the wrong time. You have to start Nick Mullins through a majority of that stretch. You have absolutely no home field advantage in terms of fans last year, because Santa Clara was one of the more stricter areas in terms of crowds during the COVID pandemic.
Well, they went to go play in Arizona for
you had to go play in Arizona. You literally get deported out of your own stadium for a month. So yeah, those factors, either way, the Levi's has not been a place that's kind to them. They can't go 0-4 at home. They just can't do that. I think I'm going to go with the Niners here. They play the Cardinals well. Last game, it was a 17-10 margin. Obviously, I mentioned the key pieces are missing for the Cardinals defensively and potentially offensively if Murray's out. I think that's enough just to give the Niners a win and go back to 4-4 this week.
Yes. So I've got the Cardinals for the second time because it has served me well. You picked the 49ers a couple weeks ago, and I picked the Cardinals, and I got that victory here. So that turned out quite nicely for myself. I know people who are like the traditionalists, any given Sunday, it's all about being 1-1 or 1-0, which has been the Cardinals mantra of every single week. We're trying to go 1-0 this year, but secretly it doesn't matter whether they win or lose this game. Protect Kyler Murray at all costs. You hear it's a 1 to 3 week injury, which probably means it's more serious than a 1 to 3 week injury. It doesn't matter. You guys are good enough. You're going to make the playoffs no matter what. Like, you guys are fine. You can win 3 games with Colt McCoy and still be the 5 seed in the NFC. It's fine. As long as you get all those pieces healthy towards the end of the season, the regular season doesn't actually matter for you anymore, Arizona. So please don't play Kyler Murray this week. I want to even if it sacrifices his MVP campaign, don't play Kyler Murray this week. And even still, I'm still taking the Arizona Cardinals because you convinced yourself that the 49ers are just purposely trying to get the 7 seed so they don't have to play at home, and not that they might not even be good enough to be the 7 seed, but they'll sneak in because there aren't 7 good teams in the NFC this year. Who knows? Maybe the 49ers, this is all a ploy and they'll go win the Super Bowl from the 7 seed instead of being kind of mediocre. But I will say, to your guys' credit, coming off of the best offensive game of the season last week, the Bears defense has been good in the past. I think they're a little less than they've been in past years, but
they had Khalil Mack out. So you do take that as kind of one of those little notes. And then also Eddie Jackson went out very early on in that game. So the Bears did come in a little bit more hindered than their traditional Bears defense that we think of when we think going into that game. Of course, you still have ballers out there like Akeem Hicks who are causing chaos, but the offensive line played well. Everyone came together. Deebo Samuel's just making clutch catches. By the way, Deebo Samuel, first 7 games of this season, has more receiving yards than any other Niners wide receiver. And who do the Niners have on their all-time wide receiving list? The GOAT, Jerry Rice.
I thought you were going to say like Braylon
Deebo
Edwards
Samuel
or something.
Actually passed Jerry Rice technically like 3-4 times. Jerry Rice is listed 3 times in the Niners top 5 first 7 games all-time receiving yards list. Because he's obviously just that amazing. In fact, just Jerry Rice statistical categories in terms of wide receivers, every other position group were like, who's the greatest of all time? Who's the greatest of all time? Then you hit wide receiver and it's like, oh, just look at the numbers. They're not even close. Neither here nor there. Going back to this game, just you mentioned what the Cardinals should do with Kyler Murray. Again, I think you could get by with 1 week of Colt McCoy. Ankle injuries, hell, I saw with Jimmy Garoppolo last year. They ruined his entire season. So you don't really want to risk that if you can help it.
I think they can get away with the whole month, though. I think they could go 4 weeks and be fine.
We'll see how that defense regresses. If that defense does show some signs of regression, then that could definitely hurt Colt McCoy's time in the lineup there. I think you could at least win 1 to 2 games if you told me McCoy was in a 4-game stretch with the current roster that he has. I think this is going to be a true look at Cliff Kingsbury to evaluate him as well as we progress forward. I think you mentioned it for the Cardinals. All you have to do is get to the playoffs this year. I don't think anyone's really looking at the Cardinals and thinking they're a true Super Bowl team. At least I'm not. Maybe I'm underrating them. I'm not seeing them as a Super Bowl contender this year. But if you're Cliff Kingsbury, you had to save your job. And getting to the playoffs is a way to save your job this year. Like you said, you're going with the Cardinals. I'm going with the Niners. No reverse jinx this week. I'm just going all in. We'll see what happens.
Let me ask you real quick. Who is the best 49ers wide receiver post Jerry Rice? Is it Torrey Smith? Is it Pierre Garcon? Like who's the best wide receiver?
I mean, Michael Crabtree will probably be our best.
Michael Crabtree is a good one.
We drafted him top 7 and he had some good years for us in the Super Bowl run, the Harbaugh year, certainly. I would say Anquan Bolden's not too bad behind him. And actually, post Jerry Rice, you mentioned we had Terrell Owens.
Let's say post Terrell Owens then. That one kind of counts.
Brandon Lloyd, actually. I would say Brandon Lloyd, Anquan Bolden. Hell, right now, I mean, I'm sure, it's short sample size, but Debo's looking amazing. Debo is really looking freaking good.
Yes.
In fact, the thing is that's tough. Obviously, you have to factor in Debo's injury history, but when he's on the field, you always feel his impact. He's doing something to help the team win. That 80-yard screen against the Bears this week, it shows you how dynamic a playmaker he is. Through his first 3 years, he's showing characteristics similar to a guy like Devontae Adams. You're very encouraged if you bought into Debo, and considering that he was drafted ahead of guys like DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, that's the type of stuff that if you're John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, you really want to see from him to justify your decision, considering how many bad draft decisions, unfortunately, those guys have made over the last 4 years.